Welcome back to Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid Anime Review Episode 20. Yep, 20. Okay, cool. Now, this episode is discussing the 25th episode of the anime, which is Premium Seat, No Extra Charge. And this one covers chapters 49, 57, and 58. I'm thinking, that's interesting. Well, this episode, they pretty much, in a way, covered as this episode, they have covered in 25 episodes the first 64 chapters. Yep, 64. And you're thinking, wow, that's cool. Gotta love that. Yep. Now, the first episode is basically, the first segment here is two segments, and they're both canon stuff. Which, this is interesting though, especially since the last several has had one original segment. What in case this episode? No. It's all focused on Kobayashi and Toru. Which, this is interesting. This is probably the first episode in a while they focus on just these two. The first segment, which comes to 49, you see, we actually have some original content here, but not a lot of it. You see, the first segment is that Kobayashi is suffering from a bad back. And she tried to do some yoga stretches, and it's not working. It has to hurt her back a lot more. Toru is trying, and of course, she buys various stuff to basically help her. Okay. Yeah, getting a message from one of my managers telling me, first going 8. Now they're going freaking 7. Okay. I guess they've had some people call out. Okay. So, back to this episode here. So, you buy various stuff to basically fix her back. And, of course, we have Lou doing a little back rub along with Kana. And of course, Toru still tries to have Kobayashi try to eat her tail. And of course, then she talks to Enna and Tatsuki. They don't offer much help except the fact that, well, they do mention that her office chair needs to be replaced, but office chairs are expensive. So she basically just comes with a different solution. Use her tail as a massager. Excuse me, yes. So yeah, use your tail as a massager. And that pretty much is the segment. It's a pretty good segment. Aside from the fact got some good amount of development for Toru, it's not much for this one. Just a tiny bit of her. Next one is very interesting. Okay, this one actually covers a 2-parter. Yes, in the case of this next segment, it pretty much in a way kind of explains Toru's backstory. It explores a lot more than before. So, mostly the best way to describe it is that the first portion, the flashback, take place before she met Enna, and we have a little bit just after she met Enna, and they have the stuff. They have the third part of it is basically all leading into the flashback scene, episode 11 from the previous season of the show, which that later led into the pilot episode, which is great. Mostly put, you have this particular paper, which is mixed with spells. She contacts her boss, who just happens to be a spell user, or he's a mage, and okay, you want to come to my office? Someone here wants to talk to you. It's okay. And the person who's there is Toru's father. I like the fact they mentioned that. Okay, this, I should point out, though, there is some minor changes here. Some really kind of big changes here with this one. Unlike in the case of the first one, which added some stuff to it, this one there actually is some changes. Okay, we have Toru's father, the Emperor Demise, here, which is interesting because this actually is the first time he showed up in the series since the final episode of Season 1. That was his last appearance in the series, and we're getting close to pretty much the finale for it. And in the case of Toru's father, I think after this, I don't think he appears ever again. No, not that I could think of. No. At least I haven't heard anything that he physically appears. Mm-hmm. Of course, his name is Damocles. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he actually physically appears. Yeah, because I think that, as far as I can tell, they pretty much in a way wrote off the character in a way. Actually, no, I think he appears in like one or two more chapters. But yeah, I would say he's so. They explained that she so a little Toru, which is so adorable. In fact, she was playing with him. You see the Emperor Demise, see him actually in his true form. Not the first time in the series, and eventually he allows her to go off her own. And then, of course, like after all the flashbacks that we did, cut to Toru basically kind of explaining it, where they actually show her transforming to a human for the first time. Now, here's something they did make a change here. In the manga, her outfit she was wearing had the front portion of the outfit open, showing off her almost showing off full frontal nudity for her. In the anime, it's closed. My guess is because they probably did. My guess is the animators probably didn't want to show a woman who's probably in her 20s this, and they probably didn't want to get flagged for being a hentai for showing nudity in the series. I mean, do they show off any nipples? No, it just basically like almost like full frontal stuff and doesn't really show much of stuff, so they probably close it up there. That's a minor change, and then of course she meets up with Kana, Lukawa, who was in her dragon form in the flashback. I think this is also the first time we actually see her in her dragon form in the series, and I think Lukawa she has the appearance of what looks like a Chinese dragon with blonde hair, which, yeah, Lukawa's got blonde hair. Also, it does appear in the first segment where she's trying to massage Kobayashi, where she mentions basically about her breast again, because that's one thing she liked about her, so that her breasts are so freaking huge. So they have to meet the various people, and then of course they mention, now they do explain where the sword came from, because in the first season she just got stabbed. They realized in the flashback in episode 11 of the previous season of the show. In the case of this one, the way they explain it here is that she was stabbed being in battle. She said allegedly humans, but according to this, it wasn't humans at all. It was actually a god who stabbed her, because she stormed the god camp and she got stabbed what looks like to be in the hip, or at least in the thigh. And then of course we see that Kobayashi removed it, as shown in the flashback from last season. Now, in the actual flashback episode, they did kind of slightly alter the scene a bit when they have Toru and Kobayashi meet for the first time. Now, in the manga, you actually see Kobayashi from the back. In the anime, you just see the battle, and then you see her pulling up the sword. Don't really see her face, per se, but that's kind of lean into it. I like that they did that. So, you can kind of say that the flashback show with Toru and Enma, you could say it takes place before the battle they had in that circle. That flashback led to that, and then after that, then of course the whole the Gods Camp thing, which, yeah, so you can kind of say that a lot of Toru's backstory is pretty much explored in the second half, which I think that was really good. I think the changes were fine. I don't think it was really much of an issue per se. And apparently it was a dragon who basically was like human-sized, but not human form per se. This is the person who taught taught Toru become an actual, taught her how to become a human, turn human form. Kana, on the other hand, is like, she asks, why did you turn human form? Because she just wanted to. And the fact she was childish. It doesn't matter what she was banished for, because they mentioned this back in episode 2, or she was banished because she's pulling pranks. What type of prank she pull? Never explained here. But after the conversation, the Emperor leaves, though he does come. I don't think he actually physically comes back, but I think he's mentioned a few times after this one. But yeah, his role is pretty much done. I don't think he physically appears after this. Which is interesting, because I think that the anime is pretty much done with him. And it looks like next week's episode looks like it's going to be a summer festival episode, which that's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. Yep, and that is going to be the final episode of Season 2. Yep, the final one, which is interesting. And then after next week, there will be an OVA coming out. Yes, an OVA, which is interesting. This actually is coming out in January. I'm like, okay, so wait for 3 months, and that's where we have the OVA, which should be so cool. I like that. It seems as though when it comes to season 2 of the anime, it seems that it's actually like, I think it's like one episode less than the last season, because last season was 13 episodes. This was like 12 plus the OVA. What you thinking? That's interesting. Yeah, as far as I can tell, there's no exact real reason for this at all. No. But this is going to be interesting, though, the fact that, the fact that we have this final episode coming, and it's the 26th episode of the anime. Mm-hmm. Yep. But not much to say about it. But this episode was definitely good per se. It's a good character piece for Toru. Yes, I like the fact she got a ton of development in this episode. Kobayashi, not very much. But you know the weird thing about Kobayashi? Despite the fact she is the main character, practically the lead of the series, they never state her first name in the entire series. Which I'm thinking, why? Why the heck would she do that for? Which, that I always thought was kind of weird. The fact that it's like that. I'm not really sure why. Per se, they never confirmed her first name. Yeah, they never have. I hope at some point they do, but they might in the future. Okay, so that's it for particular review. Tomorrow, because the fact that I have to go in a lot earlier than expected, so tomorrow, do 2 videos per se. I probably shouldn't do any Super Sentai tomorrow, just so I get these 2 anime done. So first one will be Drugs in the World, and then the last one will be Shaman King. Okay, so next video. Bye.